This might be a controversial episode because people are probably expecting us to say that certain groups paved the way in K-pop.
Who paved the way? B2B.
B2B.
Are we gonna start fan wars? Hi, welcome to the Luna Pod, where we talk all things K-pop. I'm Brooke.
And I'm Brickell, and today we are going to be talking about where K-pop started, how everything began, the roots, the history, and how it's gone through all of the generations up until now, different cultural aspects that have spread worldwide because of it, etc.
Now, we put a lot of time and research into this episode, and there's a lot of information because we're talking all of K-pop, so it's basically impossible to list every single thing. As you see, we'll pinpoint different groups, but we're not going into detail as much per group like we usually do with our group chat, so no deep dives here. We've gathered everything as best as we could, and we really hope you enjoy or learn something new.
I know, I learned a bunch of new stuff here.
Me too.
This is crazy. This was like eye-opening. I'm so excited for this episode because this is truly such fun information. But I guess let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
That's a good place to start, the beginning. I think before we talk about any specific groups, we need to talk about the Arirang boys. Arirang, something like that. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce.
Arirang.
And to start off, we'll be talking about the
Arirang.
boys. So these boys were 7 runaway students who ended up stealing 400 won from a Korean bank spring 1896. So
way
forever
back.
ago.
That was literally forever ago.
and they fled to Vancouver. And they ended up sending a telegraph to the Korean envoy, and he sympathized with them since he also once fled to the States. And there were just a bunch of articles that came out about them during the time, and one read, 7 Koreans at Howard ran away from home to be educated in the US. All are sons of noble families, but do not understand a word of English. They basically were calling these runaways like somewhat wild and romantic. So I think that's kind of the start of this whole delusional, unrealistic ideals of what a Korean man is.
These 7 thieves that ran away. They stole money from a bank and fled to the States. And then they were not necessarily like known for their musical abilities, but they had all of these girls just fawning over them and that would like beg them to sing for them and do music. And so they would. So did they actually want to do music?
I don't know. No idea. They just kind of fell into this by accident. And they said like, we don't know English, like, so we're not going to be singing in English. And they assured them that, hey, that's fine, like, whatever, just sing. And so they'd start singing Swanee River and like other similar songs. And an ethnologist, Alice Fletcher, invited 3 of them to her house to produce the first recording of Korean Arirang, which is like the Korean folk song, which is crazy.
That's insane. Literally, like, was singing at this campus, basically, and was so popular that Alice Fletcher was like, you know what, come record an official version
now we're
of,
just
like, a Korean
producing
folk song.
records.
Yeah. Did they ever get in trouble for stealing 400 won from the bank, I wonder? Because yes, they fled the States.
I think so. I think they like, a lot of times they kind of helped cover it up. Like they, in all the articles, I don't think they necessarily painted them as like thieves. What?
It's just so funny to me that they ended up doing this and then they were like glamorized. But anyway, funny enough, in 2017, the recordings of this Korean Arirang were exhibited at the 5th annual Seoul Arirang Festival. So even, again, this was 1896. And then in 2017, these recordings were shown at a festival. Yeah. So like, wow. So I guess if you're wanting to talk about the very first group in the evolution of K-pop, you could technically start with them if you're really wanting to be technical.
I would say that kind of starts the craze of it all.
Yeah. The idea of
intrigue.
Like, yes. But then 100 years later, in 1987, is when we get what I would consider the first boy group called Sobangcha. It was a 3-member group, including Taekyang, Wonkwon, and Sengwon. They had an interesting story. They disbanded really quickly in 1990, so 3 years after their debut, because one of their members left. They had a lot of like re-debut periods. It's kind of confusing. I was trying to follow their timeline and it honestly didn't make a lot of sense. They were here and then they were gone and then they came back and there was different members and it was all over the place. But then Sobangcha did try to make a comeback in 1994 when K-pop culture really started to explode, but the group couldn't keep up with the competition, to put it very bluntly. And then they also like released more music in 2005 and 2012.
That's crazy.
I know. I'm like, okay, but it didn't receive much attention, to be completely honest, so it really just didn't work out. But this group did kind of serve as like a prototype for later groups because of their style and the way that they had like formed the group in general and had like members doing specific things. It just kind of set like a foundation for it. Super random note, but Sobangcha actually got a lot of criticism in their first couple of years for copying a 3-member Japanese group called Shonentai. So obviously there was like Japanese stuff happening at this time too, but for Korea, this was kind of their first like boy group. Yeah.
And as for girl groups, they showed up a little earlier in the 30s from a 4-member group called Jugori Sisters with the members Nanyang, Sejong, Hyungrim, and Hwaja. And the songs they're most famous for were Tears of Mokpo, The Ferry Boat Leaves, and My Brother is a Strolling Singer. And they were active during World War II, but disbanded in 1945 during the liberation of Korea from Japanese colonial rule.
This is like wild to me, first of all, that there was like a girl group active during that time. Like that is crazy. Which more so, we need to get into this whole history because I was so fascinated by it. Lee Nanyang is one of the members from the Jugori sisters, and she married a singer and conductor named Kim Hae-sung. They ended up having 7 children, and 2 of her daughters and also her niece later were put together in a group called the Kim Sisters, which is who we're going to talk about next. The Kim Sisters were a 3-member group that performed in both South Korea and the United States in the 50s and the 60s. You could say that they were the first girl group to go abroad, but their journey overseas is not what you would typically think. Nanyang's husband, Hae-sung, was captured and killed by North Korea during the war, and so she banded together her daughters and her niece, who I think she adopted, but anyway, she put them together as a group to support the family during the war. The 3 girls went by Aja, Sukja, and Minja. Nanyang, their mother, basically bought American songs on the black market so that they could learn and perform them for American soldiers, and the American soldiers loved them so much that a popular American producer got them visas to bring them to America, where they went by Aja, Sue, and Mia, and really became popular overseas in the United States.
That's such a crazy journey, but like an exciting one.
I know,
like,
right?
It's just
Like, good
really
for them.
cool that they were able to do this during that time. Now, as we said before, we don't necessarily want to be like, oh, this person paid the way this person did, but we kind of are. Just along the way, we'll pinpoint people who
Have made an impact.
yeah, definitely have made enough impact to help open doors for other people.
Yeah. So those that we just talked about were just kind of like firsts that we could find.
Yeah. And so starting with So Taiji and the Boys, this is kind of in between 1991 and 97. It's a 3-member group with So Taiji, Young Hyunsuk, and Lee Juno. Now, Hyunsuk went to Taiji to learn how to dance, and after being blown away by his music, he decided to join the group.
Good for him.
Which, like, that's so crazy.
Iconic.
He blew him away so much. Like, he was like, yeah, you know what? I will join this group. And they ended up recruiting Juno, who was one of the top dancers at the time. Taiji didn't really plan to debut as a pop and dance boy group, but here we are.
He fell into it.
Yeah.
Accidentally started K-pop.
Literally. And so he brought in a bunch of influence from Western 80s hip hop. At this time went against the norms like crazy. Think like Elvis to us, you know what I mean? Like
Well,
that
yeah.
kind of like, not catastrophic, but like crazy
it's
impact
new.
in music.
Well,
in
you
the
think
way
about
you
So
danced.
Bangcha, which was probably right before Sotaji and the Boys.
Mm-hmm.
That music style is completely different.
Yeah. So they were incorporating Western hip hop with the Korean ballad sound, which really created this really cool blend of music that kind of takes us to K-pop and like what we have now.
If that's not paving a way for K-pop,
I know,
I don't
right?
really know how else to...
I don't know how else this road could have been paved.
Mm-hmm.
And at this time, he was really lucky because he didn't have to rely on TV networks since he had his own studio. And that success kind of diminished networks' power on how they dictate which artists appear on shows, which is really cool.
That is amazing. Okay, wait. We need to give more credit to Sotaji and the Boys. He literally said, you can't decide who's famous anymore, I'm doing it myself.
And this gave rise to the influence of labels and agencies. Speaking of, one of the members, Hyunsuk, is the founder and CEO of YG Entertainment.
No freaking way.
So iconic.
Oh my gosh. YG out here being one of the OGs.
Yeah, literally.
Wow.
So yeah, basically, I'm sorry, but they definitely did pave a way for other artists to just be more flexible and and just, I don't know. It's so cool.
Yeah, no, that quite literally was like the door opening of K-pop in general, in my opinion. Now, let's start going through the generations. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say K-pop generation, we have somewhat put artists and groups into quote generations based on the year that they debuted. So we have the first generation, which is what we call the birth of K-pop era. This is going to be starting around 1996 to roughly 2004. I feel like in these first generation K-pop groups, it's hard to find a lot of solid information about it just because it still was so new. Like, this is back in 96, right after Sotaji and the Boys. Like, this is just starting. But we do have a couple of groups that definitely stand out from the first generation.
So some of these groups and artists are HOT, SES, Zexkis, Shinhwa, Turbo, God, Fly to the Sky, Pinko, Rain, Lee Hyori, and Boa.
Boa was first generation?
Insane.
No way. That like is blowing my mind right now. That's crazy.
SM, who you may know as one of the big three entertainment companies, introduced the first group, which is HOT, and funny enough, stands for High Five of Teenagers. Now, I feel there's so many groups throughout all these years of K-pop that have like silly meanings to their names, and I'm like, we didn't have to have a meaning. It literally just could have been like HOT, like hot love, not
High Five of Teenagers.
It's giving first generation Bulletproof Boy Scouts.
Yes.
Well,
which,
BTS,
you know
but
what?
like still.
No, it's true. That is like
It's
the
so funny.
definition of first generation, first gen.
Hilarious.
High Five of Teenagers.
And they actually ended up disbanding due to a disagreement, which seems to be a theme currently with SM. So it started forever ago.
Yeah.
And but more tea. Kangta, who was in the group, ended up staying, and he's currently still a creative director and has been since 2005.
Wow, good for him. I love how they're all like, these OG people are like staying and they're like still making their mark. That's really cool.
And DSP Media, who was a rival group and is now acquired by Rainbow, produced SES, Zexkis, and Pinko. During this first gen, we have to talk about the fan wars. They were next level. So next level.
Because there wasn't internet back then.
So it was
how does a fan war occur?
physical fights.
Oh.
Like actually physical fights. So HOT and Zeskis, that was like the biggest one that people talk about the most. So again, like you said, there was no internet, so everything was face to face, and like the police were literally called to like break up these fights. And in the show Reply 1997, they literally have a reenactment of this, and it was like physical fights, like they're out in the rain, all this stuff. And fans like from that time literally said like that was a pretty accurate depiction of how these went down.
That's insane. This is like the history of fan wars. Fan wars have been happening since day one.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like whenever you don't, like now we have so many groups that debut in each generation. Like back then, there were only a few groups, so you really had like such a head-to-head.
Yeah, it's true.
Like,
rivalry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm kind of thankful for the internet nowadays. I'm glad we just
I'm not out here trying to throw fists.
Fight.
And so for fandoms at this time, like this is like we did start to get physical albums, and we did have our like group colors and fan chants, which we're kind of used to obviously now. And obviously we were online buying our concert tickets, so you literally had to go to like banks and other locations to buy physical tickets.
Oh, I can't. Can
like
you
the
imagine?
lines.
Not only are we camping out to get seats, but we're camping out to get tickets.
Yeah.
Oh no. Sometimes I'm grateful for the year that I was born.
I know, right? And at this time, people would just like video record the TV performances and not like if you look back at the recordings from these groups at the time, like on YouTube, it looks so weird because it's just like a lot older than what we're used to now. Not high def at all. We did not have our light sticks yet, but at this time, that's no problem because we have balloons and raincoats.
We have to talk about this because this was the most fun history of light sticks I've ever... I was mind blown. It was so cool. So basically, to support their groups, they would, like we do now, get light sticks and you're like shining it up there. You know, you've spent money, it's their colors, it's everything like that. So for them back then to support their groups, they decided to collectively, how they decided to collectively do this, I don't know because there's no internet. They all wore these bright yellow raincoats and had blew up balloons while they were at it and like waved them around to make like a big fan project that they put together way back then. And then like that has slowly morphed into dressing up specific ways, and then instead of balloons having light sticks. So cool that it's just, I love this piece of history. Then we move into second generation, which is known as the Golden Age, which is 2005 to 2012. This includes groups like TVXQ, SHINee, Big Bang, Super Junior, Girls' Generation, 21, 4 Minute, FX, 2PM, Wonder Girls, Epic High, Sistar, Tiara, A-Pink, and Kara. Now, I feel like these are groups that you start hearing more of now because some of them are still very much active. I feel like this is when K-pop really started to become an extremely profitable industry in the country, because this is when like the big three companies became huge.
So groups kind of had like their personas and celebrities as well, but this is kind of when they dropped that untouchable celebrity act for the more friendly neighborhood star. So there's a lot of more personal interactions between idols and fans.
You feel that whole, we've talked about this before in
Yes.
previous episodes of feeling so like attached to them. They feel so real.
And because of that, I feel like that's definitely whenever the more manufactured idea of an idol came from.
And then in 2010, this is when YouTube was born, and we had a huge international exposure for K-pop. One of the biggest examples of this is Psy's Gangnam Style. It pioneered globalization. It was the first to hit 1 billion views on YouTube. And I mean, I remember dancing to Gangnam Style in my middle school dances.
I know.
Like,
And
this was huge.
it was. And like, it's just funny because I didn't even think about it really being like a different language or just me not understanding a single word that's going on. Like, it was just such a fun, upbeat song. And like, it's perfect. It's still like the perfect example of like, it doesn't matter that it's in a different language. Like,
No.
just bop to it.
That was life-changing. Like, that
It
is like a
was.
childhood song. Yeah. Digital streaming also became incredibly popular, so buying physical albums was more of like a collection type thing, or like just showing support for a
Yeah.
group, because again, internet boom, a lot of stuff was digital now. We also had idols appearing on TV shows, dramas, shooting reality programs, so this is when we started seeing people like branch outside of music too and just be involved all over in the industry.
And we also got our first subunit at this time in 2006 with Super Junior's KRY for the three main vocalists, Kihyun, Ryowook, and Yesung. They're the first group with like such a large size at 13, so having a subunit to kind of
Break it up somehow.
break it up and really like just really makes a lot of sense. And Wonder Girls was the first Korean group to enter the US Billboard Hot 100 and accompanied the Jonas Brothers as opening act.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Oh, wait. That's so cute.
It is cute.
Oh my gosh. Now, with them performing with the Jo Bros, now I'm thinking with TXT's recently released with the
I know,
Jonas
it's
Brothers as well. I'm like, wait, can we have like a family reunion of Wonder Girls, Jonas Brothers, and TXT?
Now, a group we'll definitely credit paving the way for is TVXQ. They had the first international tour in Malaysia and quickly reached the top of K-pop. So similar to how I mentioned with So Taiji and the Boys being kind of like Elvis-esque for Korea, TVXQ is very much that with Mirotic. It's a classic, but it caused a stir in the public because of how outwardly provocative it was.
That is a
Oh my god,
classic.
it really is.
I mean, I feel like even now you'll see survival shows where people are auditioning and doing Mirotic.
Yeah, with like Boys Planet, our freaking
Yeah,
babies were on there doing that. Like, love.
for real.
And you definitely saw more of a rise in Japan, like breaking records of Backstreet Boys and Michael Jackson. Insane.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
And they really just were credited for setting performance standards and legitimizing idols as artists in Korea.
That is so cool. I mean, like, I knew TVXQ was huge in K-pop, like, because I feel like whenever you look at anything K-pop, it somehow ties back to
Links
them.
back to them.
Yes, like, they pop up everywhere. And breaking records from Michael Jackson?
I know, what?
That's wild. Okay, anyway.
They ended up in the Guinness Book of Records for largest official paid fan club in the world and for being the most photographed celebrity in the world with over 500 million pictures taken. Because, you know, it's still like, it's not like it's 2023, everyone has their iPhone.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big deal.
Oh, I know you can't see me, but my mouth just gaped open there for a second. Oh my gosh, that is huge.
3 members did end up leaving with a lawsuit against SM for the long 13 years contract. We're hearing about that even now with EXO.
SM.
So, and they were just saying that they didn't have any freedom with scheduling and distribution of profits. So it kind of honestly started like an internal fan war with like the ones who left and
Oh,
stayed.
that's, yeah, I remember hearing about that briefly. Maybe we'll have to go into a deep dive with TVXQ
Yeah,
someday
that'd be
and we
nice.
can go into that more. Another really cool thing that happened during second generation is KCON 2012. It was the first KCON ever held. It happened October 13th, and was only 1 day long in California. They set it up kind of like a flea market with like white tents around the arena, and they had meet and greets, fan club meetups, panels, food vendors, merchandise tables, etc. And some of the artists that attended KCON included Newest, Vix, 4 Minute, XOM, BAP, and Gina. I believe that's how it's pronounced, G.NA. Basically everything sold out for most artists within a couple of hours. Love that for them. And there was 10,000 fans there, 55 special guests, and 6 artists taking part in 25 different programs outside. They probably had no idea that it was going to be that big. And to this day, I feel like KCON consistently underestimates how big this event is going to be.
Mm-hmm. And like, even then, for 10,000 people to show up, and it's like the first one held, like that's a big showing.
Yeah, well, and again, I'm thinking back to 2012. Music conventions were kind of big anyways, but like, that's crazy. Talking about the fandoms during second generation, we first started to see fans bringing big cameras like Canons to take really high quality photos. With Shiny, for example, that became a really big thing of having big cameras out in the crowd. We also started to see photo cards come into play. TVXQ with their Japanese album in 2007, Summer Dream, and then Girls' Generation with their album in 2010 called O, were kind of the first time we started seeing photo cards. We also see lightsticks this generation.
Yay!
We upgraded from balloons, and Big Bang's G-Dragon designed the first lightstick. He wanted something for their fandom VIP to identify with and then see them in a crowd, even if there was multiple artists performing with them. So smart of him. G-Dragon.
Thanks, G-Dragon.
You changed the game here, dude.
If you're enjoying this episode so far, go ahead and follow the podcast to make sure you never miss an upload in the future. And if you'd like to show some love, feel free to give us a rating as well. We'd really appreciate it. Moving on to third generation, which is called the worldwide generation. This happened between 2013 and 2019, and you'll see groups such as EXO, GOT7, 17, Monsta X, BTS, NCT, Mamamoo, iKON, 101, Red Velvet, Twice, Blackpink, GFriend, and Oh My Girl.
Third generation, I feel like, is what our age group now is really into. Like, third and fourth generation is kind of the big wigs right now.
This generation really blasted like K-pop and Korean culture around the world, especially with more platforms coming up, which comes along with more content such as like Twitter, Instagram.
Just a big social media boom, which comes with a big worldwide boom.
And they really kind of started to shift to hearing and fulfilling the needs of fans with producing a lot of more survival shows with like Produce 101. Storytelling concepts really came into play here, and the quality of the choreo, promo, music videos, and merch were severely increased. Because like basically all of these groups were out here like, having light sticks, and like that's kind of like when this was like very popular among all groups.
Yeah, well, I feel like this was just a big industry boom in general in the world, but especially in the entertainment industry. Like, so it makes sense that there was so much happening so fast. Like this generation compared to second generation in all of those aspects, like merchandise and promotion, music videos, it's just drastically different. The world was so different by the time these third generation groups were debuting.
And before, you know, how like we mentioned earlier with some groups having like a Western hip hop like influence, now it's kind of evolved to its own thing, and fans were getting really involved in helping their favorite groups during comeback season with comeback goals, which is basically just like a team effort of...
So they make certain songs reach certain views or reach certain listens or Which, if you have a large group of people that dedicated that are doing that, you're going to skyrocket in the charts immediately. So, like, that's very smart of them to use media this way.
So, some of the groups that helped pave the way from this generation are definitely EXO. They started third gen and are basically the blueprint for a lot of concepts we still see today. And their subunit and solo work are still some of the top in the industry.
We were watching EXO stuff literally the other day, and it is top tier.
Yeah,
That's not changing. No. Another group that definitely falls under this category of helping pave the way from third generation is BTS. In 2017, they became the first K-pop group to win a Billboard award, beating Justin Bieber, who won for the past 6 years. Crazy. They're also the first to be on The Late Late Show and Good Morning America. I also feel like they played a big role in their international influence of K-pop. Like, me personally, when I was younger and Korean music started to come into like my life and my culture, my friends were starting to talk about it, it was all BTS. Like, they were the ones people were talking about. So I think they definitely played a part in like making it huge overseas.
Yeah, because I feel like most times whenever people are like, oh, K-pop, and they know nothing about it, they're like, oh, BTS?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
definitely played a part. And then another group that played the part is Monsta X. They're known as the global K-pop group. They were the first to perform at iHeartRadio's Jingle Ball Tour, which is huge here.
Yeah.
And they're the first group to perform at Madison Square Garden.
Which is also huge here.
Yeah, like people...
Those
like,
are two top.
Yeah, because
like,
artists
things.
here, like, that's, like, a goal, is to be able to perform at Madison Square Garden. Like, that's kind of that's how, like, artists here know that they made it.
Exactly. If you were to make, like, a resume for a music artist and you had Madison Square Garden on your resume, done. You made it.
And so they're definitely recognized as one of the artists who've contributed to extend the Korean wave globally.
Yeah, and I fully believe it, too. Like, we've said this before, they have some of the best English albums and English music in K-pop, personal opinion, but also facts.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense that they were so big over here. We also need to talk about survival shows that happened during Third Generation. 1 year after the start of Third Generation, YG aired Win, Who Is Next, which formed the group Winner. These type of survival shows really allowed groups to have early fan bases, which also benefits the labels and the companies. Just very smart marketing. Some of the survival shows that we did see during this generation is Mix and Match, where iKON was formed, No Mercy, which formed Monsta X, Stray Kids, which formed Stray Kids.
Who would have thought?
It's crazy. And Produced Series, which formed 4 different groups.
Now on to Fourth Generation. They're considered the viral generation, and they were from 2019 to 2022, which is a very short time frame considering all these other generations lasted for
like a minimum
like
6
at
years.
least 6 years. So I don't know, it's just very quick, but it makes a lot of sense.
This is the peak of K-pop in my opinion. Like, it is so viral and mainstreamed right now, so there is a lot of groups being formed, a lot of debuts.
It's a lot of fast moving, so it makes sense. So groups from this generation are TXT, ITZY, and Hypen, Stray Kids, ATEEZ, The Boys, aespa, Everglow, Treasure, Stacy, ONEUS, IVE, G-Idol, Purple Kiss, LE SSERAFIM, New Jeans, INMIX, and Kepler, and honestly so much more.
So many.
Now during this generation, all boundaries are gone. There's really no based in Korea anymore for these groups.
It's just expanded to such a bigger thing at this point.
And with social media being so big now, they created their accounts well before their debut and just building their fan base a lot earlier, which is so smart. And like by the time they debut, you already have fans. People already have biases. They might even have like fan-made merch at this point already. It just gives you a lot of early access to content. And this is when we see the start of two-way communication on apps such as like Universe, Bubble, Weverse, etc. And a lot of more collabs are coming from this generation, especially with like Western record labels and artists. And I feel like a lot of these groups, at least fan-wise, it's a very competitive generation.
Fan wars are intense these generations, I feel like. I mean, third gen saw a little bit of it too, but yeah, they're just very competitive.
And then there's definitely another increase in like higher quality choreo, not only style, speed, and difficulty, like just all around, you're expected to be so much better than any other generation.
Like, well, and we've talked about this, but first of all, they kind of have to because it's so competitive. It's like if they're not being consistently entertaining and releasing stuff that is so new and, you know, above the standard every time, they're going to get lost in this sea of fourth gen groups debuting. But we were literally talking about this recently. Some of the groups that debuted in fourth generation, you look at their debut song and you're like, there's no way that's a debut song.
I know.
Like, they're debuting already professional. Whereas like some of these past generations, they debut and you're like, oh, cute little babies. They like get so much better as the years go on. But they're debuting from the bat as like really professional, have their sound, lots of money from these big companies. You know, it's very interesting, a whole new world.
And the fashion and makeup are kind of elevated as well. Very experimental with like this theatrical and luxurious vibe.
Love it.
And a lot of collabs. So many artists, whether it's like the entire group or individuals from the group, have a lot of partnerships and ambassadorships.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, I swear, just within the past couple of weeks, we've seen so many artists having Samsung, Coke, all sorts of
Dior.
partnerships. Dior, yeah. We also have to take into consideration the impact that COVID had on this generation. It basically forced everything to be online and disrupted the normal debut timeline and how the industry was doing everything, because now they had to figure out how to do all of these things during a quarantine. SM ended up collaborating with Naver to have the first paid concert streaming service called Beyond Live, and there was a ton of interaction happening online with concerts, anniversary events. There was a lot more YouTube content. Live streams became a huge thing, which I feel like now is such second nature for K-pop idols. But even concerts had like live fan footage to view from home.
And I feel like even though this happened during COVID, it did set things back because, you're used to the fans actually attending comeback stages and all this stuff and going to concerts. They really were quick about it and didn't really miss that many beats on it. And I felt like since it was during quarantine, so many people, like myself included, that's when a lot of people got into K-pop and were like, let me try this out, and had so much time to catch up on all the content that had been released along with the new content being released.
Right. Well, and because I feel like so many other industries were kind of shaking. They're like, what do we do? And K-pop was like, nope, here you go. We're still releasing content. Boop, 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 boop. And you're like, oh, new content during quarantine? That's new.
MCND actually had the first video call fan sign in March 2020, which is
That's
very
amazing.
quick as
Yeah,
well
wow.
within quarantine.
Also, I didn't know they were the first ones to do fan signs. That's so cool.
And the winners would talk to the members one by one and be shipped a signed album. So it's really perfect for international fans. And I don't feel like, again, that's so second nature to us now. And I think it's a great way to be able to have interactions with fans, even though they're so far away. Because, I would love to go to a fan sign.
I know, but they don't do many, if any, over here. So, yeah.
It's a cool way to start doing that now.
Well, and I feel like COVID, yes, like was a setback, but it also opened up so many doors. Like now we have specifically filmed stuff on camera to be streamed later. Even though there is still people attending concerts, we get specific footage to view from home. And we also have like fan signs and live streams and like all of these things that are part of our daily consumption of content now that like honestly kind of came from this. And last but not least, we are going to jump right into fifth generation, who does not currently have a title because they just barely started this year in 2023 and is ongoing. Some of the groups that have officially been titled as fifth generation include 8-Turn, Psychers, Zero Base One, Zodiac, Baby Monster, Kiss of Life, Triple S, Maeve, Superkind, Boys Next Door, and Plave. Now, I feel like a huge thing that happened in fifth generation is an introduction to AI. Now, some groups have all of the members as AI, or they just have one member that's AI, and it's just creating a lot of unique lore, but it's also just a unique dynamic in general that we're just starting to see glimpses of as this starts. So first, we have Superkind, who debuted with one AI member, Seijin, but then in a recent music video, it had 2 members.
Now, Superkind, their group name is an anagram, so Prid, that part, is what represents people, like the human members, and Nuke represents the AI members. So the only letter that hasn't been announced as like standing for something yet and is still a secret is S. So I'm very curious how that's going to play into their lore.
Yeah, because they're so interesting with the way they use AI, so I'm very intrigued to see what they do with this. Another AI group, though, is Maeve. They were the first AI-generated entire K-pop group using deep fake, which is where you like put someone's face onto another person's face. So it's like really advanced CGI, kind of. You also have Plave, which is a virtual idol group. So it's not fully AI, I would say. It's kind of just them, like, when you see behind the scenes of, like, actors and they have all of those, like, dots all over them and they can use that to animate something over them, that's kind of what they're doing with, like, a cartoon version of themselves.
Yeah,
so it tracks their movements and...
Yeah, so they use body tracking for their movements. So what you see is them just kind of virtual models of themselves. So they have very funny live streams, to be honest, because they'll glitch. And, like, they'll have wardrobe malfunction. Like, one member, his, like, feet were outside of his shoe. And so he was, like, banging his foot on the ground, trying to get the tracking correct. Or, like, one's arm will, like, it's always the same member. Like, his arm looks broken all the time. It's hilarious.
Which is so funny. We walked into our K-pop store the other day, and they were playing a live from Plave, like a current live. But honestly, these AI groups are coming out just very strong, just like Gen 4 has. And not just the AI groups, but all of the groups from Gen 5 have been making a very big impact. So I'm very excited to see what they do in the future and, like, what their title is going to be, or, like, what are they going to be known for in this generation. Also, if this 5th gen just started in 2023, that means we have so many years of new groups debuting that we're going to have to keep up with. I'm loving the new ones so far, though, so I'm excited to see what they do.
So talking about the impact that K-pop has had, they have really just been bringing a very unique and creative sound and just going past current expectations in what celebrities offer in the music industry.
Well, that's literally why I got intrigued by K-pop in the first place. It's a sound that I was wanting so badly and was not hearing.
I know, and they constantly break stereotypes with their personalities and duality, and it appeals to so many different people, and that's why it's so intriguing.
When I tell people that all the time, I'm like, I guarantee there is a K-pop group or a song out there that you will love. It doesn't matter who you are.
Or even an idol.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're overall just creating a new standard entertainment-wise. And if you want to hear more about that, check out our Idol Duality episode.
Not only are they spreading Korean culture, but all sorts of other cultures as well, since we're now seeing members from all over the world, including China, Japan, Thailand, America, Australia, etc. It's such a cultural blend, and I think it just, again, increases that appeal to people from all over. We're also getting, because it is so worldwide, we're getting different influences from different cultures incorporated into their music and content too. So it's really just becoming something that anyone can enjoy. Again, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's just to make that a point.
And with this comes so many different languages, and K-pop constantly breaks language barriers. There was a time where 17 was holding a live stream, and a fan made the comment of, "I don't understand, but I love you." And they just found that very touching and end up turning it into a song, because the fan doesn't know anything they're saying because they don't speak Korean, but they are just feel so connected to them and just do truly love them regardless of that. And some of the lyrics are like different languages and different times. You don't have to understand, password that only the two of us shared in secret, open up the both of us.
So
Such
cute.
a sweet song.
Oh, and it's so true. Like, there's a reason that people love K-pop so much. Let's jump into some of the daily influences that I see from K-pop. I feel like a big one is just posing in general, or like doing finger hearts. Like, even at work, I know people do not know what finger hearts mean or like where that originated from. I at first didn't know where a finger heart originated from, but I was doing it everywhere. Listen to our very first episode if you want to hear that story. But that's such a huge thing, and it really did originate. Like, poses and gestures are Asian influence. We also have so many boba events and cafe hopping and like all sorts of events in general, and boba shops in general have had a huge flare in popularity. And again, that's Asian influence.
And there's a lot of fashion influences that come along with this. Like, these idols have the best style ever. Just a lot of unique as well. Like, even within one group, they'll all have so many different styles. And I feel like fans like want to really just like incorporate that into their daily lives as well.
Well, and I feel like Asian countries in general have always been so ahead of the curve in fashion in general. Like, you'll see fashion going on there, and then like a couple years later, we start doing that same style. So makes a lot of sense. I feel like dance challenges have also become really popular with Korean music. Again, I feel like that's just kind of their media influence in general that has kind of skyrocketed that popularity. I also feel like K-pop has just become such a community. Like, it's a place that, I mean, that's how we became really close, is by discovering this together. And we've also been able to meet hosts and vendors. I've reconnected with friends, met new friends. I feel like I'm constantly surprised by the people I'm talking to, and they somehow know of K-pop, love K-pop already, or know somebody very close to them, like their kids or something like that, that loves K-pop too. And even when you're out in public, you'll see random people who are carrying something K-pop related, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's my person. Like, like we share a connection there. So it's just become such a community, and that's really amazing for an industry to do, to create an entire world like this.
And going into why it's appealing, it's basically elevated boy bands. I mean, most of us grew up on like One Direction, Jonas Brothers, and it's just constant content and fan service.
It is. Like, I look back at like my One Direction fangirl days, and I'm like, the amount of content I was getting then is nothing compared to the content that I get now. And not only are we getting massive amounts of content, but we're also getting full dancing, singing, rapping, concepts. Like, it's a whole package. So I'm like, it really is an upgraded, elevated boy band.
And then concerts have become honestly such an event themselves. Like, yes, you're going out for the night, it's a lot of fun, but like, it's way more than just that. Every group has a specific vibe, whether that's overall or from different like eras that they've had. So fans will dress up according to that. They'll bring their light sticks. It's a huge deal. You'll have all these, a lot of accessories. And I feel like the only like example you'll see that is Harry Styles. Because I went to that concert 2020 or 2021, and like that was the closest to an experience of a K-pop concert.
Yeah.
And it still wasn't fully there. Like, just like the whole idea of like dressing up and like in certain eras, and like same with like Taylor Swift's new tour eras, like it was a big deal.
Well, and like not only outfits, but again, like you said, it's like the accessories, the light sticks, the photo cards, the like everything that you're bringing with. And I mean, we just went to Big Time Rush and saw them in concert, and they were fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but the difference between a K-pop concert and a regular concert is so drastically different. And like we said before, K-pop really just has music for everyone, and I feel like when someone hears K-pop but doesn't understand what K-pop is, they immediately think of bubblegum pop. It's honestly not all just bubblegum pop. I honestly find more not bubblegum pop than I do regular K-pop.
Especially now, like, maybe like some older generations, that's more of a common sound, but now I think we've definitely like geared towards a different sound. And with fashion comes airport fashion. That is like probably the biggest. Like, yes, we freak out over concept photos and stage outfits, but like airport fashion,
who would have thought?
I'm constantly freaking out over this. Anytime someone travels, I'm like, okay, I need to find the people who have taken photos of them at the airport. What are they wearing? Because it's always so good. Even if it's casual, like it can be the most normal outfit, but somehow it's high fashion. It looks amazing.
Well, and they make it a whole thing where they stand outside for people to take photos.
Yes, they literally
before
wait
they go.
for photos and then they go.
Honestly, I feel bad because when I'm on an airplane, I want to be in leggings and a giant sweatshirt, and you know, I don't want to be looking good at all, but they just look incredible.
I would like to. If I'm going somewhere nice, I will.
Right.
Like next time. But recently, it's literally just me in my baggy sweatpants and my like way too big flannel. And hey, it's comfortable. It's whatever.
I guess if an idol was wearing that, I'd kind of freak out over that outfit too.
Honestly,
I'm not gonna lie.
like I see idols are wearing what I'm wearing on a daily basis in their dance practice videos, and they somehow look amazing, and I look like a literal hobo slob.
But if you're a K-pop idol, somehow you're making it look great.
If you're Hoshi, somehow you're hot.
For real. Another thing that's really appealing about K-pop is the whole idea of personas, which again we've talked about in previous episodes. I won't go into too much detail here, but that's something that I absolutely love about K-pop. We also just get an all-rounder celebrity when it comes to an idol. You get a singer, performer, actor, model, etc., etc. Honestly, just constant content. I feel like I am never bored. I just have to open up YouTube and bam, there's 5 new things that came out. So this has been kind of a brief history dive into the world of K-pop and how it has made an impact. We might do a part 2 to this in the future to go deeper into certain aspects, but I feel like we did cover kind of a good general basis of where we started and where we are now. But before we head out, we are going to do our song of the moment. This week it is going to be
Bona Bona by Treasure.
We were freaking out over this. This is the sound that we have been wanting and missing from Treasure for I feel like forever.
Like we loved their like first album stuff, like their debut time, like that was amazing. And I think the release before this, I can't remember the name of it, it wasn't our favorite. At least like the title track, like we watched the music video, we weren't very into it. And then their subunit T5 came out with Move, everything.
My gosh, so good.
I love T5. And then they came out with Bona Bona and we were like nervous about it. We're like, is this gonna be like back to what we wanted or like this new sound?
My hopes were low, but it was the sound that we've been wanting. I literally could sob.
I love this song so much.
Me too. Definitely go check it out, Bona Bona by Treasure. As always, you can find us on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at The Luna Pod, and on Instagram at The Luna Podcast for up-to-date information on episode releases and behind-the-scenes fun. We post all sorts of content, so definitely make sure to follow us and check that out. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Bye! I know, different wars.
Who was in the war?
Well, Japan was in World War II. Or was that World War I?
I have no idea.
This is not a history podcast.
This is history of K-pop, not war.
History of America.
Fan wars, not world wars. I don't do world wars, I do fan wars.
That's gonna be my protest sign. Fan wars, not world wars.